you should be glad they at least they let you stand at the wedding. You didn't get a damn thing out of it, but at least they let you be there. Yeah, because you're the background for them. And when this idiotic article goes on, actually it's not an article at all, it's actually a campaign puff piece. It goes on to write, Warren's plan comes on the eve of her appearance at Essence Fest. Essence Fest? Oh, Essence Magazine's annual little festival, right? Essence Magazine, that's sinking ship. And it is the largest gathering of black women in the country, with an expected 500,000 attendees. Oh, really? Essence Fest. Now, isn't Essence Fest supposed to be about black women? Nah, these so-called formerly black publications, once white power got its hooks in, and really they didn't even wait for white power to get their hooks in, almost from its inception, a lot of these so-called black publications like Essence, Jet, Ebony, and such, these guys have been sock puppets for white power. The people who published these publications, they were simply looking at it as their entree to whatever white social circle they wanted to get into. How do I get invited to the white cheese and croissant party so I can finally get invited to the right parties? That's what the people who publish these old, decrepit dinosaurs that are from a bygone era that are now dropping dead, going belly up, and going extinct. Essence Fest, supposed to be about black women, but you wouldn't know it by their reporting, and you damn sure wouldn't know it by the kind of conventions and functions that these guys hold. So who's going to be at Essence Fest besides Elizabeth Warren? Who, by the way, still has not made any pledges for reparations, though you can see video of her online saying, check? Check for what? You can see video of her when she was asked, when you going to cut a check? You can see that. You can't see her making any pledges to reparations, though. But that's okay. She's going to be in good company, because also expected to attend Essence Fest are going to be Kamala Harris, Cory Booker, Beto O'Rourke, and Pete Booty. Okay, so that's what you're going to have. You're going to have this cabal, the axis of evil. You're going to have the Legion of Doom getting together. All of these people who ain't done a damn thing for black people and are not going to. These clowns who are interested in bodegas. Now, right off top, let's talk about an organization whose name wasn't even known and practically didn't exist up until last week or so. Morning Consult. According to their website, they're a global technology company who revolutionizes ways to collect, organize, and share survey research data to transform how decisions are made. Well, there's some truth in advertising for you. I bet they do collect and organize survey data, and their job is to transform how people think. You're the one whose decisions they're trying to transform. Just understand that. So these guys are basically a private intelligence corporation, and I've told you about these before, like Booz Hamilton, like Fusion GPS, among others. That's who Morning Consult is. And they were the ones who released the poll that said that Joe Biden had 47% of black women backing him. Now, besides what they've been through. Ever since we crushed Kamala Harris's would-be presidential bid, the forces of white supremacy have been running around like chickens with their heads cut off. Man. Because they didn't expect something like this to happen. They damn sure didn't expect for it to come from us, but now it has. So what white supremacy is doing is it is employing a kitchen sink strategy. They're bringing out all the golden oldies, every move that they've ever pulled, because at this point it's all hands on deck. So what you've got them trying to pull the feminist card because black women had left the reservation 60 years ago, but it seems like a critical mass of them have come back, and as far as they're concerned, no, the divide and conquer strategy must be in full effect. They're trying to bring out the old preachers because, hey, black folks just love a good sermon. And then they're trying to bring out folks with this black-brown alliance, or rather we should call it what it would be, a brown-black alliance. They want us to be following them. Julian Castro is attempting to pull this one. They're just going overboard. They're trying to do everything that they can to get us off of this, because the first thing is, okay, we get it. You guys have got a full head of steam about something. Oh, this reparations thing. Okay, we'll go ahead and say reparations a couple of times. And then what we'll tell you is, yeah, reparations for all disadvantaged people. That's the thing. When you listen to them, see if they say black. If you tell them we're going to talk about reparations, and the first thing they start saying is disadvantaged, minorities, inner city, places that are underprivileged, they start doing that crap, forget it. If they can't say black and stick to only black, then we ain't with it. This is the reason why we have weaponized the ballot box. I just love having these trolls and morons, either in my comment section or on my Twitter feed, whining like a bunch of babies about, well, Donald Trump, we can't risk him getting reelected. What are you talking about? Well, what's Donald Trump going to do? He's racist. So if the other 40-some-odd presidents, including Barack Obama, what's your point? Oh, well, if you don't like Donald Trump as president, then you might want to decide what's more important to you then. Donald Trump remaining president, or whether or not you do right by black people. Because if you're going to continue the old nothing for black folks, though, then you better get ready for Donald Trump to get reelected in 2020, and get ready for President Mike Pence in 2024, and get ready for the reelection of President Mike Pence in 2028, and whatever the hell else comes after. Because if these guys don't get stopped, you better believe it's not going to be Mike Pence who's the real problem. It's going to be whomever comes after him. So you got a choice then. Are you going to offer the United States a sacrifice on the altar of your arrogance and belligerence and your refusal to do what's right? Or are you going to go ahead and do what's right? Well, we know what the answer is. You're going to do what we want when we bring you to our will. And that's why we're letting Trump remain in there. And we're going to make sure he stays in there. Why shouldn't we? When the pain gets great enough, you white supremacist trash, whether you're on the left or the right, you ain't got no guts. When the pain gets too much, you'll say, okay, enough. So we're going to go ahead and let you stew in your own juices. We're going to make sure you understand that when you're dealing with black folks, it's going to be about respect. See, we've learned the lesson. We're not trying to be popular. Because if you want to be popular, as I've always told you, all you got to do is say yes to everyone. If you want to know how to be popular, just say yes to everyone. But you also wind up being their doormat, too. Because that's what happens when people say yes all the time. People take advantage of them. Oh, they'll like you because they know they can take advantage of you. But if you want to be respected, you better start learning to say no. Because when you start telling people no, they can't just run up in your face and just get something out of you willy-nilly. When they come up to you, they got to think first. They have to consider first. When they deal with you, they know that this is somebody who I can't just take for granted. I show up, I got to come correct or not come at all. They know that. And you better know that too. Politics is a business transaction. So far, they're all trying to figure out if they can buy us off with words. Well, if we just give you niggers a little bit of lip service, we know how you niggers are. You guys always, you just want somebody to say it with the word once or twice. Okay, fine, they will say it once or twice, and we'll bury it. But we always make sure to say reparations is for everybody. No, we're looking to level the playing field. And that being the case, you're going to have to get with that program. And yes, we know that it's going to be politically destabilizing the country. That's the entire point. We want white supremacy to be destabilized. We are trying to bring white supremacy down. That's the entire point. The white supremacist trash who run YouTube, they understand that they depend on white supremacy for every crumb of their daily bread. So they don't want black folks thinking that we're supposed to be making the political system, the electoral system, unworkable. Because that's what happens when you break one of the electoral arms of white supremacy's administrative arm. When you take one of the two wings of the white supremacist plutocrat party and rip that wing off and break that wing, which is what we're doing to the left wing of white supremacy, we're breaking it. Then what happens is that bird ain't getting off the ground. It's going to be flapping there and not doing anything. It's going to be in a lot of pain, but it won't be going anywhere. They know exactly what this means. They know exactly what the historical and political implications are when you have whole segments of society who decide that they're going to turn their back on the ballot box. They know that you don't just have a short-term problem, you have an imminent problem. You got an issue where you don't need people deciding, well, that ballot box, that's only for those folk over there, or that ballot box doesn't mean anything, or that ballot box has no legitimacy, which means the people who are in office have no legitimacy. And What happens in a country where people start deciding, whole segments of the society decide that the person in charge has no legitimacy? Well, what you get is Venezuela. That's what you get. White supremacy is trying to figure out if they can just come up with some weasel words, and that'll get us back on board. But fortunately, a critical mass of black folks have now congregated here. They've migrated to voices like this one, who are telling black folks, nah, we're not doing the okie doke. See, Jesse Jackson can't get you out of this one. That's what the chunks in the Democrat Party need to understand. Your black bootlicks, the people who you've been putting on TV, they're not going to be able to bail you out this time. They can't get you out of this one. You're not going to bring on Simone Sanders and Angela Rye with mustard and lettuce on the side and think that they're going to give a couple of piddling lip service words to us, and apparently we're supposed to go, yeah, we'll listen to what they say now. We're here, we're seeing them talk as far as we're concerned. Hey, look at these idiots. They think they're going to trick us. That's what's happening. We're looking at them, but it's not because we're taking what they say seriously. We're looking at them and going, yeah, look at the pathetic bootlicks for white supremacy, desperately trying to figure out how they can get us back on board with their plantation, and it ain't going to work. White supremacy understands exactly what it is that we're demanding. We are demanding that they dismantle this anti-black regime with their own hands. And if we put enough pain on them, they'll do it. We understand that this is going to be a long-term project. Long-term means it's going to be the work of years, if not decades. We can win this, but first of all, we got to show for the ages, we got to show that we're willing to show the persistence. We've been consistently inconsistent. Black folks will have a head of steam for a couple of weeks and then it's over. No. When it comes to elections, which in the United States is basically a full-time occupation, it's a full-time process. When it comes to elections, the issue for black folks is reparations. And the larger issue over that, the overarching issue, is tangibles. You come into black folks, you better be showing up with some tangibles. What's black folks' issue? Tangibles. What can you put in my hand? Tangibles. That's our election issue. The immigrants got theirs, the white folks got theirs, and we got ours. Except the difference is they're looking at going, well, but we can't give you your election issue because this country is based on anti-black racism. It's not based on what we did to the Indians or what we did to the Japanese. It's not based on it. It's based on what we did to you. That's what forms the foundation of this country. We can't get rid of that. Well, you're not going to have a choice. The reason the bad guys are running around like chickens with their heads cut off, the reason that political bigwigs from Howard Dean to Mark Morial are nutting up is because black people are asserting ourselves. And by the way, Bernie Sanders is from Vermont, ain't he? And you know who else is from Vermont? Howard Dean. And how do both of those jackasses feel about reparations? They don't support them. They're supposed to be Yankees here. They're supposed to be good white liberals from up north here. Bernie Sanders is supposed to be a Jewish liberal. He washes your face with that every 5 seconds. He wants to remind you. I mean, there's not a freaking stop that he's had where he doesn't remind you that he's Jewish. The bought and paid for black bootlicks who white power uses to control us and to disperse the revolutionary energy that we keep amassing has failed. It's failed this time. Because the movement is not being led by a leader, which means you're not going to be able to nominate a bootlick to be the mouthpiece or the face of the spokesperson for this movement. The ideology is the movement. We don't have a leader, we got teams now. The teams are united amongst a common strategy, a common goal, a common purpose, a common agenda. White supremacy has placed black bootlicks at all levels and throughout every strata of our community. They are there as the control mechanism. Every time you look up, you got these Negroes who nobody can figure out where the hell their money came from, yet they always seem to have money for their political campaigns, and they always seem to be invited to certain parties that nobody else gets invited to. They always are having lunches with such and such a white person, such and such a congressman, such and such a sheriff, such and such a mayor. It's like, why the hell are these guys in the middle of the fall? Because white power has been letting you know. These are the Negroes who we have put in place as the overseers within the black community. They are our eyes, ears, and hands within the black community. And their job is that you're going to have them in the room because you're going to trust them because they're one of you. And yet, whenever you guys decide that it's time to overthrow white supremacy, well, here's going to be Roly-Poly Martin. Here's going to be Michael Eric Dyson. Here's going to be Joy Reid. Well, here's going to be Angela Rye. Well, you guys seem to think that immigrants are working against your interest, and that one, that's oversimplification, and two, it's just not true, and three, it's very dangerous for you to be saying that because, well, I'm an immigrant, and what you're saying is you don't want me to rule over you, and that's very dangerous. That's very, very dangerous for you not to want me to rule over you, because I'm the one who knows what's in your best interest. That's very dangerous. That's what's happening here. We're bringing it all down. White supremacy and their bootlicks understand that when this thing falls, when this ship sinks, when the great ship White Supremacy Titanic goes down, it's going to have all hands aboard. Ain't going to be no lifeboats because we already cut those loose first. White supremacy put the black bootlicks over us, but what's happening is we're driving these traitors out. We are cutting off the ears and gouging the eyes of white supremacy among us. You're not going to be slipping any agents into this movement because folks already understand that who they're going to be listening to are the ones who have proven themselves tried and true. The voices who have been out here for over a decade who have proven themselves. So no, you're not going to be trying to find some Negro online who you could raise up. The old trick of, well, we're going to find some black person who we've appointed, like roly-poly. Yeah, that's it, roly-poly. And we're going to give him a broom closet with a table in it, and we're going to have a couple of flashlights and say that this is the Roland Martin Unfiltered. Roland Martin Unfiltered. Yeah, kind of the same way that you got a sewer line that's unfiltered, just full of crap. But that's what they're hoping for. Before it's all over, expect to have some joker that you never heard of, or perhaps maybe someone who we might have heard of in passing. All of a sudden will be trying to tell us, well, yeah, but we don't want to cut off the folks who happen to be from the Caribbean. We all of us are victims of slavery. Can't just limit it to American descendants of slaves. And wait a minute, what about the LGBTs? Look, if there's one thing that should have come out of this whole reparations deal, especially as it relates to the banner classification, American descendants of slaves, that's a classification that cuts across all lines, as long as you came out of the American experience of slavery. It applies to black people, descendants of slaves, whether you're straight or gay. It applies to you whether you are male or female. It applies to you whether you are Christian, Muslim, Buddhist, or whatever the world else there is. It applies to you no matter your political classification. I am saddened to say that it would apply to people like David Clark and Clarence Thomas, though of course we should be going through their paperwork, when the whole reparations thing gets rolling. Let's make sure we found all the times that Clarence Thomas decided to mark other on his applications, and David Clark and the rest. Just because they may be descendants of slaves doesn't mean that we need to be cutting them a check, because after all, they don't need it. But the point is, if anything, American descendants of slaves, just as a classification, as an umbrella term, it cuts across all those lines. It is a unifying principle. So somebody coming along trying to do some intersectionalist talk, that's division. They're trying to figure out, hey, we know that there's some of y'all out there who are going to be saying, well, I got some Portuguese in me, and I got some Filipino, and some Swedish, and don't forget about the British too. I got some British ancestry. They know that there's some of you dysfunctional clowns out there who keep doing that mess. In fact, I posted on my Twitter feed today that Julian Castro, his campaign manager, some woman named Maya Rupert, said, and I quote, "We say after every election, black women showed up in droves. They are consistently voting not just for their own interests, but for all progressive-minded people." This is the campaign manager, who's a black woman, by the way, for Julian Castro. This is what they're saying about black females. About these black sisters, this is what they're saying about you. That you have shown them time and time again that you vote consistently not for your interest, but for everyone else's interest. And the Houston Chronicle piece that I linked to on my Twitter page, you got Julian Castro happy as hell as far as he's concerned. If I can get the black female vote, hell, I got the black vote on lock. I might as well, I got the entire black vote around the neck. Events will show whether or not Julian Castro is right or wrong. In needs to be a brand new day across the board. All of that divide and conquer bullcrap that's been pulled successfully for all these decades, we're gonna see which ones of us prove them wrong and which ones of them prove the bad guys right. Because what's happening right now is it's easy to point to Angela Rye with mustard and lettuce on the side and Joy Reid and the rest of these. It's easy to point to these clowns because we've been coming out against them for the longest time. But what about the ones who've been sitting among us, who, as they see this talk gaining more and more steam, and as they see that, no, this is going to be the new normal, which means this is what the black community in the United States stands for in these issues today, tomorrow, and always. This is not about one election cycle. This is not about one president or one presidential candidate. This is not about one electoral race. This is the new normal, which means that you come back 50 years from now, guess what? It's still going to be the black people who came out of American slavery. And we do this not to separate ourselves from the African diaspora, but we live in a real world with real circumstances. And we have to be honest about the fact that since we have faced so much disrespect, not from all, but from too damn many within the diaspora, we felt it necessary to clarify our position within the diaspora. We're still part of the organization. We're always going to be part of the organization. That will never change. But what has changed is we have now clarified our position within the organization. That's what we've done. We've clarified it. The same way these other groups have made it clear that a right of return for the descendants of American slaves, apparently that's not on the table. Same way they've made it clear that some of them, too many of them, like to take little digs at us, or some of them, too many of them, like to try to run us into the ground. Well, we have never done that to them. We have a number of issues, many of them forced upon us by the Europeans, saddled with all sorts of problems that we previously didn't have before, particularly our loyalty system to one another. We have a number of issues that were foisted upon us by our enemies, but we also have some that we came by honestly as well, and we need to be truthful about both of them so that we can deal with them. Voiced certain problems on us, but he also took advantage of certain pre-existing problems that we had. He had been practicing divide and conquer in Europe for 1,000 years before he brought his show on the road to Africa. So when he saw some of those conditions in Africa, he was like, well, this is right out of my playbook. I know exactly what to do about this, and that's exactly what he did. He got folks to be sitting here. It's one thing to be proud of where you came from, wherever in the diaspora you are. But when you decide that you're going to cross the line, there is one line that you cannot cross, and that is the respect line. You never cross that line. Problem is, you go up and talk to those Somalians in Minnesota, they cross the respect line all day long. They spitting on it all day long. And you talk to those Jamaicans in New York, they spitting on the respect line all day long. And you talk to those Nigerians in Baltimore and D.C., they spitting on the line all day long. In too many cases, Joy Reid and all these clowns that is spitting on the line. Too many of these Haitians in Florida spitting on the line all day long. That respect line is a line that we as the diaspora never cross. Because just as what's true for the individual is true for the group, what that means is when we say we're all we got, it means that as a group. If you're a Jamaican, you have a reparations claim against the British. And I would never begrudge you that. But guess what else I would never do? I would also never go to Jamaica and say, man, you bunch of ganja-smoking Rastafari, you got a bunch of ropes for hair. What the hell is wrong with you people? I would never sit there and try to magnify myself over my brothers in Jamaica. I would never do that. And I would also never call myself trying to speak as some authority over them as if I know something about them that they don't know. Problem is, we've had too many of the diaspora who showed up here doing that mess, and you can't just hide behind, well, white supremacy did a very good job of vetting these guys. Yeah, they did, but the problem is that when you go to some of these countries, what you find is the same mess going on. So we got some issues, family. We got some house cleaning that needs to take place. That's part of what this is about. Because nobody's going to feel like any serious house cleaning needs to take place until we pass the test of time when people realize, the way that we were trying to go along to get along before and how we were everybody's advocates except for ourselves, we're flying the flag for Pan-Africanism, and we're flying the flag for the great, happy African global family. when everybody else is sitting here either taking cheap shots at us or running us into the ground or trying to find some way to put us down, people need to understand, no, we're hitting the reset button with everyone. We're resetting our relationship with everybody. That's what's going to happen here. Now, a lot of folks are going to look and say, we understand, you're right. You guys have been the whipping boys for everybody else, and you guys have been flying the flag for the African family as a whole globally, proudly, and unfortunately you haven't been reciprocated with, and you know what? You are right for what you're doing. There are going to be those who get it, but there will be others who are looking and going, well, hell, you've been our footstools all this time. You guys have been our doormats all this time. You've been letting us slap you in the face and get away with it all this time. Why are you getting offended now? And that's the problem. We've conditioned them to believe that apparently they can just keep on getting away with it. Like, our place in the world is to be their punching bag. Our place in the world is to be their spittoon. Our place in the world is to be their lackey and their underlings. That our place in the world is to be the ones who everybody gets to kick around. We've conditioned them to think that. Time to condition them differently. Time to condition them to the reality. Everyone. We got to make sure everybody gets this straight. Because once the African diaspora gets their minds right and understands that it's a brand new day, then what's going to happen is you're going to have a lot of folks who look and say, man, they're straightening out their relationships amongst themselves in the U.S. They are also finally straightening out their relationships with the rest of the diaspora. These guys are going to be burying a lot of these problems. And when they come back out the gate, they're going to come out the gate swinging, and they're going to be unified. And we're not going to be able to pull the same divide and conquer tactics as 500 years ago because everybody will have gotten their mind straight. They're trying to stop that process now and get ready to see a whole lot of these folks who you've been looking at in Congress, and other than Kamala Harris, who have immigrant roots. Get ready for them to be bringing that out. A lot of these folks who say, well, I don't necessarily, my family came out of slavery too. It just wasn't American slavery. See, we were slaves too. It just wasn't American slavery. How can you say that there's a difference? Because you guys have been sitting over there with them people. You've been advocating for your particular group and no one else, even though the descendants of American slaves happen to be the majority. You've been doing that mess, so you've been drawing lines of distinction between yourselves and us. All we're doing is we're agreeing with you. Now, why would you be mad that we're agreeing with you? Because what's happened is, in the past, you were the one dealing from a position of strength given to you by white supremacy. We're dealing from a position of strength given to us by us. And white supremacy had nothing to do with it, which means you will have nothing to do with it. You don't have the ability to elbow your way into the room this time. We've locked you out, and what's happening is you're looking at clowns like Mark Morial, and the rest of these guys. They can see the iron wall of their obsolescence coming at them at 1,000,000 miles an hour. They can see that they're about to go splat against the wall of irrelevance, because once we knock them out the box, once we have an entire 2 or 3 presidential cycles that pass where the black bootlicks, the clowns on television, these idiots are not able to say anything that reflects the reality of the black vote, the black electorate. Once we demonstrate these guys on TV, they mean nothing. What's going to happen is they're going to try to pretty it up at first by saying, well, there's some rabble-rousers online, and there are extremists on all sides, if there's an alt-right, I guess this is the alt-left. Same way they try to make black folks into Antifa, like we got anything to do with that crap when it's actually a bunch of white folk. Guess what? The same way they try to make us into the face of sexual harassment and assault in America, they'll be trying to do the same thing here. It's going to be a variation on the exact same theme. That, well, black people are the bad guys in all situations. They're the root of all evil. Why? Take a look at these people who refuse to take up the banner against Donald Trump. They refuse to get on board with mass immigration. They refuse to get on board with the LGBT whatever. These guys, they're just basically the alt-left. Well, there's extremists in every group. You got white supremacists, you have these black supremacists over here too, see? And you will be hearing that. And the same people who are pretending to be on board with reparations right now, Angela Rye with mustard and lettuce on the side, she's going to be the one out there just selling the soap, saying, well, we tried, but, you got to have a coalition. You can't just be out there by yourselves. You got to have a coalition, and that means you do what the Democrats tell you to do. Angela Rye is a political operative, been one her entire life. Simone Sanders, political operative, been one her entire life. Roly-Poly Martin, a failed political operative, and he's been failing his entire life. All these clowns been working for these campaigns. These guys are not any sort of black activists. They're not any civil rights anything. They're Democrat tools. That's what they are. And what's happening is we're throwing out the toolbox. White supremacy could never have held us in check without having people within our community, traitors, to promote and protect white supremacy, and to disrupt our own internal politics, to make sure that everything that we do always gets derailed, always gets thrown off track, and always gets dragged to some sort of white supremacist scheme. We've called these bastards out. We've pointed them out, and we're casting them out. We're purging ourselves of these traitors within. To white power, this is terrifying, because if we don't have white power black flunkies misleading us, then there's only one direction for us to go. Taking our power back from white supremacy. And they understand that what this is going to mean is that they're going to be losing power. They don't believe in losing power for anything. Their position is extremely delicate. They don't want to see us threatening that. They're trying to head it off now, but they don't know how is the problem. Because of the fact that they don't have anybody to buy off. They don't have any connections within this black empowerment sphere. They don't have anybody who they can go to and say, hey, can you go talk to that Professor Trump guy? Can you go talk to that TVA guy? Can you go talk to that Tariq guy? Can you go talk to that Tarian Rain guy? Can you go talk to any of the other voices in that black empowerment? You know, this reparations thing and talking about how it's all about black and they're not looking out for anybody else. Can you talk to them about that? Hey, can you invite me to one of our parties? Hey, there's some white women over here. Hey, there's a white man over here. The tools are not going to work. They don't have any means of making any inroads. We've cut them off at the knees. This is not going to be something where they can use the tried and true playbook, because we have neutralized those plays. They don't have any sort of people they can appeal to and send them to come talk to us, because we ain't talking to them. They didn't come out of this, so they are verboten here. And we have done the yeoman's work for the last decade, almost decade and a half now, of educating you that these black folks you see on TV, they are not your friends. So it's a matter of, even if those of us who are the leading voices of black empowerment on the internet today, even if we disappear tomorrow, the problem wouldn't go away, because you guys have been successfully brainwashed. We washed your minds. We cleansed your minds of that garbage. So you guys now know what to do, even without us here. But that being said, we're going to be taking no time off, because at the end of the day, we want to see our team win as much as you do. They want to head this off, and every move that they make to try to deflect, dodge, distract, it only makes things worse. We're getting over our codependency issues. We're finally dealing with our inferiority complex. Having Elizabeth Warren or Alexandria Cortez trying to appropriate reparations, that has only anchored us more. They can go ahead and pretend to themselves that, well, as long as we don't say it on CNN, as long as we don't say it on MSNBC, as long as we don't say it in the New York Times, well, it'll be as if it didn't happen, because it's only going to be among those black folks on the internet. Yeah, but the black folks on the internet are the ones who set the frame and set the tone for everybody else. Because out of 45 million ex-slaves, we're the only ones who are organized. Yeah, the corrupt and crumbling fossils, those civil rights retreads over at the Urban League with Mark Moron Morial, over at the NAACP, and all these other professional do-nothing societies, these guys represent basically the 65 to dead demo of black folks. They're not the future. Hell, they're not even the present anymore. These guys are just sitting there, twiddling their thumbs, singing church hymns, talking about the old days when they were chasing white women or trying to shake their butts for white men back in the 70s. That's what they're about. That's what they were reduced to. So these guys are the definition of irrelevant, and that's the reason why you don't see any of us talking about, well, if we can take over the Urban League or take over the NAACP, why would I want to take over a corpse? No, they were created by white supremacy as tools of white supremacy, and we're breaking white supremacist tools. So trying to figure out how you can have some black bootlicks tell us that, well, you don't need to be mad at Alexandria Cortez. We need a coalition. Nah, coalition's dead. We tried that. Didn't work. We ain't trying it again. We see through the scam, and we're becoming louder and more strident. The political issue is going to be what's in it for for those of us black folks who came out of slavery and us alone. When you mention these other groups, the reaction you get from us, the survivors of slavery, it's going to be vociferous and it's going to be in your face. That's the reason why I talked about we need to have dedicated pressure groups. We need to have people on the ground who make it clear when Bernie Sanders holds his little do-nothing rallies where he's got 5 or 6 black folk all behind him, right behind him on the podium, so that when you do those close-up camera shots, you can see the 5 or 6 black supporters that he's got. When he tries that crap to let them know you're not getting away with it, we see what you're doing. So the old ploys, the old word games, and the old so-called image crafting, all of the fake imagery, that ain't gonna work. I told you about that whole scam in my classic video, Why Roger Ailes is Not Going Away, which you can find in the archives on this channel. Back in the 60s, Joe McGinnis, with his book, The Making of the President, 1968, he was giving a quote from Roger Ailes when he was working on Richard Nixon's first presidential campaign, that in places like Philadelphia and Baltimore, that they had to have more than 1 or 2 Negroes in the crowd because the voting base in those cities was at least 30% black. That's what Roger Ailes was saying. Well, we gotta have a few of them in there, not too many, because we ain't trying to offend the Southern folks who don't like to see black people. We don't want them thinking that we're for everybody. But we need to have a few of them because black voters, they're going to notice if there's no black people in the audience in a place like Philadelphia. We got to have a few of them. And once we do that, though, we're going to be stuck doing it. So we got to be careful how many black votes we put in, because if we suddenly remove them, then the media is going to say, why no Negroes in the picture all of a sudden? That's what Roger Ailes was saying 50 plus years ago. Back in the freaking 1960s. He was saying that back then. So this whole thing of trying to manipulate us by putting 1 or 2 of our own in the image, that's an old trick. We got to show them, though, that the trick don't work anymore. We got to show them that we're not anyone's suckers anymore. You're not going to make us ashamed of demanding things for ourselves. We're becoming politically selfish, which we should have done back in 1865, but you know what? We're making up for lost time now. We're becoming politically selfish. Oh, well, what about friends? Friends are overrated. Where's my tangibles? Well, we got to do coalition building. Coalition is for the weak. Strong people don't go looking for coalitions because they got enough. Coalition is what you look for when you ain't got enough power to get things done on your own. You bring me my tangibles. Cut the check. That's what you need to be doing. Cut the check. And by demanding things for ourselves alone, it's going to make it where everyone gets put on notice. We are not looking for friends. We're looking for power. So when you come running up to black folks, everyone's going to know, well, you better not go running up to black folks. Why not? Because the first thing they're going to say to you is, cut my check. Where's my check at? That's what they're going to say. In other words, when you come to black folks, it ain't going to be about, let me go ahead and give you some lip service. And I'm going to say black people are my best friends. And, oh, black people have been neglected. They've been saying that crap since 1865. Unless you're cutting a check, I don't want to hear it. And the reason I'm going so hard in the paint for this is my biggest fear is not that we're not going to get reparations. If we speak in one persistent voice, and if we are determined and we put aggressive action behind it, if we make it where they can't hide from reparations and nobody gets to sit this one out, everyone's told you got to go on the record whether you want to or not. That's what I mean by a dedicated pressure group. Make it where every time they look up, yeah, someone else is going to be running up to you with a cell phone saying, say, about that reparations thing. You ran in Philadelphia, you ran in Baltimore, you ran in New York. Hey, you're still running, Bernie. That's the thing. Put these bastards on the run. If they refuse to make the commitment, put them on the run. My biggest fear is that white supremacy is going to announce some empty, do-nothing program. Or perhaps they're going to say, hey, we got a $2 tax rebate. And there could be some of y'all out there who are going to look and say, well, that's just the beginning. Well, they got to do something small because the country got a lot of debt, you see. Got a lot of national debt. You know, they don't never tell AIPAC the country's got tons of national debt. We're $20 trillion in debt, so we can't give you a $38 billion defense package. Not over 10 years, not over 100 years. We're broke. Country's broke. They don't do that. Wall Street said give us $750 billion back in 2008. Congress said done. Israel says give us $38 billion, $3.5 billion a year. Congress said done. black folks say you're going to pay for the biggest crime in human history for the people who built this country, Congress says, ooh, look at the time, gotta go. Sorry, the checkbook's empty. No, the National Treasury, you're not going to give us that crap about the National Treasury is closed just because you saw black folks finally storming the gates. And that ain't going to happen. That ain't flying. We know what the hell was done against us. It's a brand new day, and today is payday. That's what it is, folks. It's a brand new day, America. Today is payday. And we're not going to be giving them permission to declare themselves innocent of a sin that they committed against us. You're not going to have the New York Times and Fortune magazine saying that Democrats are trying to wrap their heads around the reparations thing. What are they going to do about reparations? No. Kamala Harris, the same Kamala Harris who declared that she's not going to do anything that's only for black people. Great, in that case, then tell her to dismiss herself, because she just did that. She just dismissed herself. She's not going to have any say over this. Look, when it comes time to talk about Jewish reparations, you take a look at who put together those studies. You take a look at who it is who writes the proposals. It's all Jews top to bottom. Ain't a single Gentile on the list. You know what? That's fine. You're talking about an issue that's for Jews. You want to make it where the Jews are guaranteed that it's done to their satisfaction, and the same thing goes here. You ain't going to just put black folks up there, because otherwise you get Ta-Nehisi Coates, who will have Alexandria Cortez say it needs to be for everyone, starting from the New Deal forward, and he'll be sitting there silent going, yes, ma'am, just check mark, yep, for everyone, starting from the New Deal. Social justice, you see, Chris Hayes is my friend. I want to get back on MSNBC, and this is, where I stand is different than these radicals over there, those black first radicals. I'm not like them. That's not the kind of person that you want in the room. You do not want somebody like that in the room when it comes time to talk about who's going to be getting what. When it comes time to structure how the payout's going to work. You don't want somebody like that. What you want are some of the folks who are going hard in the paint for it. You want people from our sphere. We have more than enough experts within our own ranks. We're not going to have the same people who have been denying us reparations and been lying about reparations and have been insulting us and attacking us. They're going to be the ones choosing how it goes. The hell they will. That's why we got to get in their faces about it. Nancy Pelosi needs to be put on Front Street live on camera and told, you are not going to be doing anything with reparations yourself. We are going to tell you what it is, and you are going to listen to what we say and do what we say. And we tell them, Nancy Pelosi, you ain't going to be part of this. Kamala Harris, you'll have no say in this. Bernie Sanders, you'll have no say in this. Julian Castro, you'll have no say in this. Like I told you, we will not have come into our own until we first demonstrate that we have the ability to destroy the campaigns of white candidates. Going after Kamala Harris and crushing her campaign means very little. White supremacy is not based on having their black flunkies out there. White supremacy is based on making sure that it's a closed club for whites only. That's what it's actually based on. Just like when they integrated the lunch counters in the movie theaters, they want to tell us that getting some sort of government program is going to be reparations. That's going to be what counts as all done. See, we the biggest crime in human history because Kamala Harris passed